it's one thing writing the story and the editing and the way it progresses as the story unfolds, and then quite another the actual editing itself. Now obviously many do forward their manuscripts onto an editor, which I would also recommend, but I don't think it's a bad thing just to learn along the way. Just a few rules. To help structure the writing. Now I have edited this I think once or twice before in places, but I wasn't happy with the layout, and my apologies if I'm repeating myself on a few points, and my apologies if you have no interest in actual writing, but I hope you find this relaxing nonetheless. But dialogue needs to be indented every time somebody speaks as it changes, which, if I'm perfectly honest, in my first couple of books, I don't know why I missed that point, because I read books. I'm not a highbrow reader by any stretch, but that was a point that I missed, so I want to go through each chapter again and make sure that every time somebody new speaks, it gets indented. That's it, moved in. To structure the conversation. Now an indent, when you do this, is normally about 0.5 inches, which I think is 1.27 centimetres. I may have got that wrong, but that gives you an idea, and you can set that on your Word document or Scrivener, whatever program you're using. So these are the points that I'm going to be amending as I go through, and also, so we have indenting, which is the main one. Now the other one, although my first line kind of almost breaks the rules, you shouldn't use people's names too much in conversation, because you have to think about it like it is in real life when people talk. It's not often when we have conversations with each other that we use their names, unless there's an emphasis on it, or a almost whimsical or a point or sarcasm possibly. As you can see from my first line, I can't live like this anymore, damn you Tom. I felt wanted the name in there because I thought she was really directing it at him, but it's something to bear in mind, not to keep throwing everybody's name about in conversation. So saying that, when you do something in real life and then when you write it down, when you are coming to edit your manuscript, it's quite handy, like I'm doing now, or I will do shortly, is to read it out loud, because sometimes when you write something and then when you read it, it just comes across as completely unnatural. So try and read your manuscript out loud. It will sound more cheesy, possibly, than things do in real life, chapter. For example, an exclamation mark, it should start with a capital letter. And the same as inverted commas with a speech. I don't think I have any long speeches in this chapter, but if I did, and I think there's one towards the end, maybe in the middle, you would start off that person with your speech, and then you'd have your text, but you wouldn't end it if it was continuing, so you drop that one, but you would restart it with another one and continue their speech. There'd be a space here, like a little paragraph change, and then right when they've finished giving their speech or their long paragraph, you'd put one in there, so it would kind of be the first paragraph, drop that one there, start your next paragraph, include again the inverted speech commas at the top, finish off what they're saying, and then speech, inverted commas at the end. As I say, I don't think I'm going to be coming across that as much as possibly towards the end of my book. There's one, maybe two. But let's just casually start going through, just sit back and relax. I'm just going to casually go through it and make any amendments that I need to. And we'll take it from there. If I think of something else, because there are points I'm sure will crop up, that I will most definitely, of course, share with you. It may help, it may not, but maybe. Okay, so we had the pre-word that I think was in another video. I can't live like this anymore, damn you, Tom. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You're giving up on us. You know you are. Yes, I am. I'm tired. Tired of all the empty promises. Tired of... on that note also, I didn't get very far, did I? Sorry. If they're saying something and then there's a pause, you might put a comma as if someone's breathing. However, if somebody's saying something and they're interrupted, you pop in. I'm probably not using the right terminology, as I'm not a highbrow writer or reader, but a dash, basically. Yeah. So, yes I am, I'm tired. And I could put a comma there, but literally she's just stopping. I'm tired. Tired of the empty promises, tired of, and then she's interrupted. Tired of what? Me. So I popped in a little dash there, but I know I haven't done that through all of it, so that's something. You know, is it a pause with a comma, or is it an interruption? In which case, a dash. I'm tired of it all. What started as a heated argument trailed off into just words that seemed easy to say but draining to deliver. Gabrielle picked up a handbag and placed it on her luggage. She wanted to just walk off in a dignified manner, leaving her old world behind her, but a few last words lingered around in her mouth. She stopped and turned and walked back over to her husband. Should she kiss him goodbye? Say she was sorry that it had come to this. In her mind, she placed her hand gently on his cheek. What the hell, Gabrielle, was that for? Now, do I need what the hell, Gabrielle? Because again, the name thing. What the? Possibly. I think as its intro to the story. What the hell? No, what the hell, Gabrielle? What was that for? I think I'll leave it in for now. So Tom, in shock, holding his hand close to his cheek. What the It was close to what she had imagined, and part of her had wanted to say and do something nice. After all, they had been married for nearly 10 years, although it seemed longer. But the slap just seemed to say it all. Maybe it was not dignified, but she knew she had bottled up her feelings for too long. Tom had always promised to have those chats, but there was always something else more pressing. One by one, the little things gathered moss until they were finally great big boulders hurling down the hill, crushing into her once blissful life and marriage. With flights being called around her, Gabrielle picked up her luggage and made her way to the check-in desk, not wanting to turn around and look at Tom. It was one thing pretending to be okay and strong, but if she turned and saw Tom, it may weaken her resolve. She may start feeling sorry for him or doubting her feelings. She was often guilty of getting lost in her own thoughts and mind, something that Tom loved about her when they first met, but later became a familiar nugget that he used as a weapon to tease her in the middle of an argument. Well, Gabrielle, I wish we could all just live in this fantasy world of yours, where the sun always shines and rainy days are happy days and being relaxed is the new success. She handed over her passport and paperwork as swiftly as she could, just in case Tom in fact came over, and created a scene. After all, no one likes to get slapped in public. Doing it had surprised her, as she was not the one in the marriage who would normally make it seem. Gosh, my ink poured out there. She couldn't even say that Tom was. To make a scene would mean that you have to care, and she'd seen very little of that over the past years. As her passport was handed back, she drew a breath. She rather liked this feeling of being back in control. She turned hesitantly to find Tom had gone. Something inside of her felt a little disappointed, but equally relieved. She walked slowly towards the escalators that would take her through security and onto her gate. She stopped and looked around. Families, business executives all briskly went about their day, with a few men in suits taking a second glance at Gabrielle. She wasn't what you would call stunning, but she was beautiful, a natural beauty, and for her age she still could easily turn heads. Just not her husband's, it seemed. Individuals hurried past her. To catch their flights. Those having to work or wanting to play, looking for adventure or leaving their lives behind. Had he really gone? Why didn't he want to fight for their marriage? But who was she to question him? She was the one who packed her bags. Would she have wanted him to fight for her? Yes, but there had been too many times and too many lost opportunities. It wasn't just him. They had both forgotten they were friends as well as husband and wife. Lovers they had once been seemed a distant memory. She almost couldn't blame him for having an affair. Almost, that is. He swore blindly that he hadn't, and then it was a friendship which almost made it worse. She had nearly had an affair herself. It can be very alluring having a man really see you and want to listen to you, even if it is just to get you into bed. But she refused to be tempted. Marriage to her was something precious, something that needed looking after, something to be worked at and be proud of. She was never one to sleep around. The thought of finding the one to build a life together was always more appealing. Two soulmates sharing their dreams, the highs and the lows, growing more in love by the day, surrounded by the memories they made and shared together. However, their reality had been more like a beautiful crystal vase that was originally cherished, noticed and enjoyed, until one day it was just a practical item that had been dropped a few times with corners glued back on, but that now didn't stop the water trickling out. Not fit for purpose. Now just felt the right time for her to start a new chapter. Now I felt the right time to get away. she come back? She didn't know. For now, she just needed space and time. She placed her hand luggage onto the first step of the escalator and stepped onto the next herself as she started to rise. She couldn't help overhearing a conversation behind her. She thought they must be in their 70s, and she had a deliciously contagious laugh. They joked a little and spoke endearingly. They were most certainly still in love. It was nice to hear, and she couldn't help but smile. As she got to the top of the escalator, she stepped off and made her way to security. She always felt like she could relax more once the security was behind her and the duty-free lay ahead of her, and with a large glass of white just around the corner. As she waited in the queue at the security, she noticed the gentleman in front of her, casually dressed in denim. Gabrielle found herself admiring the small amount of skin he showed around his midriff, a very toned midriff, while he peeled off his belt and slipped off his shoes. As she looked down to take off her shoes, her eyes glanced to his feet, nicely tanned, that seemed to go all the way up to the midriff, and a small part of his neck that she could see, that was set off by the pale blue of his shirt and loose-fitting collar. A nice neck, she thought. I think I'm doing that in italics because it's more of a thought. As you wonder what the face would look like, there's space, extra space, just there. That belonged to his body. But before she could see, he was called forward and frisked before heading through to collect his belongings. He stretched out his arms, and Gabrielle couldn't help feel a little envious of the security officer. He was on the taller side, and from what she could see, had a nice manner about him, and a very nice view from where she stood. Bringing her attention back onto her tray, she pushed it forward. This really felt like a new beginning. She was ready for this new chapter. There's an extra thing in there. A chapter that would hopefully fulfill her, allow her to grow without compromising what she enjoyed or wanted. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but as yet nothing was set in concrete. This was just a flight taking her somewhere warm, a flight taking her to rediscover herself. Time for her that she had needed for a long time. For a moment her mind slipped back to those she would miss, parts of her old life that she had loved, those she had hoped may have taken this journey with her, but it was good that she was doing it alone. She had doubted herself for so long, and she was ready to start believing again. She's got all the speech coming up. As she walked through and collected her tray, she glanced up to see if she could see the man in denim, but he had gone. "So sorry, my dear. Have you the time?" There's something also that I made a mistake on at some points here and there, and whether it's just a habit thing of mine, is when you do an endearing, like a dear or honey or sweetheart or darling, I automatically do it in capital letter, but in fact, as I understand it, I don't think it should be. So I think I've got that right, but I need to check as I go through, because for some reason I automatically do the capital. Anyway, that's something else. "So sorry, my dear, have you the time? They've sent my tray with my watch spiralling down the other conveyor belt. Bastard. They've probably found your stash of drugs," laughed her husband. It was a couple who had been on the escalator behind her. "Don't say that. They'll be wanting to frisk me next," replied his wife again with his utterly delicious laughter, a laughter that was so contagious that you really couldn't tell if she was naughty or nice. "Well, darling, let's hope so." Barry fetched the oil from the bag. Don't say that. children. Oh, she was naughty, thought Gabrielle, but wonderful. What a breath of fresh air. Okay. That needs to go down one. I started that on the wrong line. And it's not intended. Oh, it's just after 6:30, Gabrielle replied, fixing her watch to her wrist. Thank you, dear. Let's hope they don't keep me too long. I have done this journey countless times and they always search my tray. I think they just want to get their hands on my smalls. You haven't worn smalls since, God, I can't remember. Come on, you, let's get your tray, joked her husband, Barry. Mind you, I can't often remember what I did last night or 5 minutes ago, he added, shaking his head with a wry smile. So that's that, mind you, comma, that's it. I can, she whispered to Gabrielle with a wink, and again that playful laugh, and walked off to join her husband to retrieve her tray of goodness knows what. Gabrielle slipped on her shoes, lifted out her hand luggage, and turned to place her tray on a pile of others. Oh, I'm so sorry, came a calm American accent. Please, let me. And the tan gentleman that Gabrielle had noticed took a tray, placed it together with his, and added it to the pile. Oh, thank you, replied Gabrielle, hoping something sexy or witty would follow from her mouth to get his attention. But words weren't needed. He had noticed her earlier, and she had his attention. Do we need them? No problem. Have a good flight now, he replied, stopping for a moment to subtly admire before smiling softly, picking up his bags and walking away. Isn't he bloody gorgeous, dear? Said Betsy in Gabrielle's ear quietly as she wheeled her hand luggage up to next to her. Both ladies momentarily watched him as he walked towards the duty-free. Gabrielle, feeling a little flustered that someone had seen her staring, recomposed herself. You got your luggage okay then? She asked Betsy. Yes, they found my drugs and bottles of gin, all a bit of a fuss about nothing. Gabrielle's mouth fell open a little, not sure if she was being serious or not. Right, Barry darling, let's replenish the drinks cabinet. I want to find something new to play with, replied Betsy to her husband. Most likely. I think again I will keep the name in. Right, or not. Right, Barry darling. Right. Yeah, I think I will for now. Dear, once we get our booze from the duty-free, we'll be heading to the first bar, just to the left as you come out of the other side. Join us if you like. It'll be just about time for 7 o'clock cocktails. Part of our ritual to have a sneaky one before our flight is called. Us Brits have to stick together. I heard that, Betsy, said Barry, her husband, taking her arm and softly reminding her. I am Dutch, as you well know, Elizabeth. That's indent. I know you are, darling, replied his wife, who raised her eyebrows as if to say, men. He's calling me by my full name, dear. Better dash before I'm in trouble. He's calling me by my full name, dear. Better dash before I'm in trouble. She laughed. See you on the other side, hopefully. Gabrielle really liked her. Barry was more reserved, but they both had such a wonderful, warm aura, with a good dollop of fun or trouble. She couldn't quite decide. Double-checking that she had all her possessions, as she always had a feeling that she had left something behind, she started to make her way to the duty-free, where she spotted in the first aisle the Hawaiian shirt of Barry, and could hear them laughing as she made her way to the Joe Malone counter to see if they had any new scents. she would pick up her favourite, lime, basil and mandarin. Casting her eye over the many clear rectangle bottles, no new scents caught her attention, so she picked up a bottle of her customary favourite, spritzed her wrists and handed a new bottle to the cashier. As she made her way to the next aisle to grab herself a bottle of her second favourite, a bottle of Grey Goose, her eyes locked onto a familiar sight, blue denim, nice back and shoulders, standing right where she was heading. Great minds think alike, she said, trying to act casually as she leant forward to pick up a Grey Goose off the shelf. The denim stranger looked around with a bottle in his hand, his blue eyes meeting hers. She couldn't help feel herself blush a little. Was she staring again? He was very good looking. Hey, yeah, great minds indeed. Was just deciding, should it be one bottle or two? Two, always two, she replied, keeping her eyes locked on his and hoping that wouldn't make her sound like an alcoholic. Two it is, he replied, while keeping her gaze and noticing how beautiful her lips were when she said two. Soft and gentle and precise. He couldn't help but breathe the moment in. Her stunning green eyes, a warm glow that radiated off her face, her long hair casually scooped up, with a few pieces of hair trailing indiscriminately around her face and neck, and a wonderful aroma of mandarins. You're English. Sorry, what I meant was you have a lovely accent, he finally said. Yes, sorry, she replied, realising how dull that sounded, and considered for a moment to elaborate, and throwing that she had an Australian twang too, as she thought that sounded more exotic. But before she started to dig herself a hole, she had replied positively, or he had replied positively. I like it. And with a smile added, I don't suppose you would like one of these before you catch your flight. That's if you have time. Gabrielle thought for a moment about her offer for 7 o'clock cocktails with a couple she had met through security. Normally when she travelled, she hardly spoke to anyone, and that had included her husband, and now here she was, getting invited for drinks twice. What had changed? Maybe she already had. I have time. My flight is delayed a little, but she trailed. A pause or a break. But she trailed off. Was it something she should do? After all, she didn't even know him, but he seemed nice and looked even better. I'm sorry, I'm Gerard, and held out his hand to shake hers gently. Oh, right, yes, sorry too. I'm Gabrielle, she replied, holding out her hand. The hands gently met, with her long, delicate fingers sliding into his strong, tanned hand that closed gently around hers, and it felt like they had been made for each other. Time seemed to stand still for a moment. I'm heading to the bar to the left as you come out of here. I said I would meet up with... someone, she finally said, thinking if she was to have a drink with him, somehow she would feel safer knowing the couple she had met would be nearby. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were alone. Sorry, I just presumed. And he trailed off, looking a little awkward like he had overstepped the mark. Of course she wasn't going to be alone. Look at her. Gabrielle found herself correcting him straight away. No, I am alone. One drink would be nice, thank you. Gerald smiled, relieved. Two, always two, he replied with a warm smile that just drew her in and lit up his eyes. Sometimes with this scenario, when, what's the word I'm looking for? Because you have pre and post. Oh goodness me. When I say the word attachments, it's not pre and post dialogue. My mind's gone blank. actually answer your own questions. So Gerald smiled, relieved. 2, always 2. He replied with a warm smile that just drew her in and lit up his eyes. Gabrielle appreciated the comeback and just smiled. I'll see you later. And as she walked away to pay for the grey goose, she could feel him still looking at her. What was she doing? It was only a moment ago she had been walking away from her husband. Now she was walking away from this stranger who somehow made her feel. How did she feel? Excited, nervous, curious, wanted. Then all it seemed, and more. As she made her way from the duty-free, she stopped to help an elderly man who had dropped his passport and boarding ticket. She couldn't help notice that he looked a little anxious. Here, let me. As she picked them both up and handed them back to him. I'm always dropping things, she added, when they were both interrupted by a loud "you" from the bar they were near. Gabrielle glanced up and then turned to the elderly gentleman who had a face like leather and filled with so much character and wisdom, she thought. I don't know what. Are you okay? She asked him politely. That's caught on there. I will be once I get a living drink. Takes forever to get to this point. He replied in a French accent, and he waved his arm at the couple at the bar and marched off to meet them. Gabrielle stood stuck for words. Oh, okay, you're welcome. She said quietly to herself and looked towards the bar where she couldn't believe an elderly couple and one even more so elderly gent could make such raucous laughter. Betsy waved at her again to come and join them. Gabrielle walked into the bar and there on the bar top was a collection of cocktails. Betsy tapped her watch and called to Gabrielle. Just on time for 7 o'clock cocktails. Come, take a seat. Where are you flying to? Gabrielle tentatively walked over and pulled up a bar stool, her eyes in awe of these three embracing life. Palmer. Did you hear that, Barry? She's flying to Palmer too. What a hoot we'll have. Claude, meet. And she trailed off, realising that she didn't even know her name. Gabrielle, it's Gabrielle. She smiled to all three. Here, Gabrielle, get your laughing gear around this, Barry said, and passed her a cocktail. We can probably get through a few of these. A few, as the flight's delayed. Some things are just meant to be, replied Betsy, in between sucks on her cocktail straw. Aren't you a pretty thing? She added, admiring Gabrielle from top to toe, as was Claude, who simply nodded in agreement with a few questionable mumbles in French that she couldn't quite hear. Cheers, Prost, salute echoed around the side of the bar that they had taken over. It must be 7 o'clock cocktails, came a soft American voice from the bar entrance. Oh, Gerard, you gorgeous creature, come and join us, called Betsy, as she ushered to the bartender for one more cocktail and whispered to Gabrielle, if I was a few years younger. Gabrielle turned to see Gerard walk over to the four of them. I don't know why I'm surprised to see you three here, not the first time, but this is unexpected. And he trailed off while his eyes remained on Gabrielle. Oh, Gerard, meet Gabrielle. She's on our flight, Betsy enthused, but it seemed no introduction was needed. Their eyes said it all. Italics. But this is unacceptable. Betty enthused, but it seemed not sure if I've used that before, didn't I? Maybe I'm okay to use it again. Okay. share with each other.